Good evening. We have a beautiful video for you. I want you to pay this some close attention. We're getting close to the time that everything that we say when they deal with these videos in your future need to be understood. We're in that timing right now. There's some critical things gonna happen. You can see things occurring in your news all over the world right now.
The U.S. is warning about China's so-called peace plan for the war in Ukraine. China's leader Xi Jinping is discussing the proposal with Russian President Vladimir Putin, but U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is calling the plan a stalling tactic at best. Foreign correspondent Tom Sufi-Burridge is in Kyiv with more.
At the height of Putin's pivotal summit with China's President Xi, drone attacks overnight in Russian-occupied Crimea. Seen in these videos circulating online, the explosions destroying a stock of Russian cruise missiles, according to Ukrainian officials. The attacks coming just hours after Xi arriving in Moscow, the Chinese leader bringing his peace proposal on his first visit since Russia invaded Ukraine. And inside the Kremlin, just days after the International Criminal Court charged Putin with war crimes, Xi calling him a dear friend. Putin saying that Chinese peace proposal, which he has carefully studied, will be part of formal talks set to begin this morning. But US Secretary of State Antony Blinken hitting back, saying any initiative allowing Russian troops to remain on Ukrainian sovereign land is a stalling tactic.
Calling for a ceasefire that does not include the removal of Russian forces from Ukrainian territory would effectively be supporting the ratification of Russian conquest.
And Tom Sufi-Burridge joins us now from Kyiv. Tom, formal talks are now underway between Xi and Putin. So how much of a priority is the war in Ukraine? What are we expecting to hear from them?
I think it isn't the biggest issue for China, Diane. I mean, the war in Ukraine is the backdrop to this summit. But I think for China, it's about economic interests. It's about access to Russian energy. But I think, for Russia, it clearly is front and center. And therefore, the formal talks are now underway. We heard from President Putin yesterday saying he had studied this Chinese peace proposal. Xi didn't mention Ukraine at all yesterday. Let's see the language tonight. I think for China, really, it suits the Chinese that they have a fairly ambiguous position on the war in Ukraine. I mean, they don't condemn it. They don't condemn Russia's invasion. They're not supplying, as far as we're aware, lethal aid to Ukraine, to Russia right now. They're providing electrical components to the Russian military. That helps the Russians. But, in broad terms, they are sort of talking the talk for Russia in terms of the propaganda and the messaging. And I think, Putin probably will be nudging Xi in a sort of more concrete direction. It remains to be seen whether he'll achieve that. And in a way, the more this war drags on, the more that Western weapon stocks and ammunition are depleted. That kind of suits the Chinese in a sense. And here they come as the kind of kingmakers trying to make peace, even though in reality, there's not much substance in their peace proposal. And making peace here in Ukraine will be very, very different to the recent massive deal they did manage to get between the Saudis and the Iranians, which was a massive diplomatic coup.
Now, Tom, all of this is happening as Ukraine claims it destroyed Russian cruise missiles in Crimea with drones in this video circulating online. So what do we know about that so far?
Yeah, I mean, look, the details are sparse. We've seen the videos. Ukrainian officials are saying that they used drones to hit targets in Russian-annexed Crimea. Remember, Crimea was taken by Russia. It basically annexed the peninsula back in 2014. I mean, the Ukrainians are claiming that they used these drones to hit Russian cruise missiles, a stock of Russian cruise missiles on a railway. I mean, I've just come off a briefing with Western officials. Those Western officials are not confirming those details about the fact that Russian missiles have been hit in this attack. But I mean, there's other incidents or events happening. We had the Russians saying they'd intercepted American B-52 bombers over the Baltic Sea. We've got the Japanese Prime Minister rolling into town here in Ukraine, the first time that a Japanese leader has been in a country at war since World War II. I think all of these events, the timing of them is not coincidental, and it speaks to how important this summit between Russia and China is. Diane?
All right, Tom Sufi-Burridge in Kyiv, thank you.
So I'm going to tell you what you need to know each and every year, so you'll be guided through these troublesome times that's going to be. But like I say, Do not worry about nothing. God got your back, okay? You'll know before time, so you'll know exactly what's going on. Now, this is entitled The Great Black Passover / Exodus. The Great Black Passover / Exodus. See, this was in the Bible, and none of your leadership, none of your religious leaders or anyone have ever showed you this, okay? They talk about this, what's going to happen with Israel over there, and Israel is about here, okay? Israel is not about nobody over there, no fake Israel over there. Israel is not even a place until Israel come, which is the person, which is the code name for Lewis. So when they be telling you Israel over here and Israel over there, and you got to remember, they manipulate things. They manipulate things, okay? They manipulate things, and you got to understand this, okay? Now, this is very important to understand because the Great Black Passover, the Great Black Passover / Exodus. You can also say the Great Black Exodus. So you can say either one, however you wanted to wrestle in your head. The Great Black Exodus or the Great Black Passover or the Great Black Passover / Exodus. It's a time. It's in the Bible. It's a time. This is an esoteric writing. This Bible is in code. They told you 30 years ago that the Bible was in code. You have to realize this book is a coded book. Thought have been generous enough to come to me to get me to do the work that I was created to do in order to let you know, because he are delivering you, so to let you know what time it is. Okay? Now, you have to see this. Now, Exodus 6:6-7, okay? The Great Black Exodus, Passover Exodus 2027 to 2044. 2027 to 2044, okay? You need to know that. Now, why did I say 2027? Because what I'm doing, that 2027 to 2024 is about the Exodus. But the Passover is 2021 to 2027.
This map shows the Black Belt of the United States. Its name comes from the fertile soil associated with the region. And for most of America's history, more than 90% of the country's largest minority group lived here. Starting in the early 20th century, nearly half of the African American population left this region to resettle in emerging northern and midwestern cities. It was one of the largest internal migrations in U.S. history, and now data indicates that a new movement is taking shape. To understand why, let's go back to 1865. The Emancipation Proclamation ended slavery and started a new era for colored people in the states. Shortly after, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments enfranchised people of color at large. For the first time, the majority of Black Americans controlled their own destinies. In the years immediately following emancipation, most freed slaves chose to stay in their communities. After all, the only America they had known was the South. It was common for their descendants to work as sharecroppers on plantations. Sometimes their only payment was permission to live on the property. But that wasn't the worst aspect of the South for blacks.
The Jim Crow caste system determined where you could eat, what platform you stood on when you were catching a train. This was a rigid caste system in which any breach of the caste system could literally mean your life. That's
author and journalist Isabel Wilkerson. She spent 15 years compiling the stories of Black exodus to cities in the North, Midwest, and West. The movement would come to be known as the Great Migration.
The Great Migration was really a seeking of political asylum within the borders of our own country. Many of them were fleeing for their lives. They were fleeing a caste system, a rigid caste system known as Jim Crow, in which everything that you could and could not do was based on what you looked like.
In 1915, African Americans began to leave the Black Belt for these new industrial centers. By 1929, 1.5 million African Americans had resettled in new northern metro areas. At the time, America's participation in World War I drove demand for manufacturing labor, but strict immigration laws left northern factories with a shortage of workers. Factories in the North started recruiting low-skilled workers from the South. The workers faced discrimination in their new homes, which culminated in the Red Summer of 1919. Migrant blacks, whites, and European immigrants were all competing for limited housing and resources, which exacerbated relationships in city centers. The most prominent of these settlements for migrating blacks was New York City, and the art, music, and theater that emerged from this community became known as the Harlem Renaissance. These artistic achievements redefined the cultural image of blacks in America. But the stock market crash of 1929 and ensuing Great Depression slowed the influx from the South and effectively ended the first migration. A second wave began in the 40s when World War II kickstarted manufacturing again, while agricultural employment in the South plummeted. Once again, people living in the rural South began to migrate to cities. Manufacturing hubs in the West were far more prominent in this second movement, but only a fraction of skilled labor positions went to African Americans. That kind of discrimination was a common experience for participants in the Great Migration. Throughout history, the segregated neighborhoods that Southern blacks flocked to often became the ground centers of massive, racially motivated rioting. In most cases, the protesting began in response to perceived unfair treatment of the black community. This is a trend that continues today, as seen in modern violent protests in Baltimore, Ferguson, and Milwaukee. By the end of the second migration, an estimated 5 to 8 million blacks had resettled outside of the South. Moving ahead to the 1960s, the civil rights movement had introduced a new vision of racial identity in America. This movement's leaders argued for the equality of all people. Meanwhile, the definition of all people was changing. Changes in immigration policy starting in 1952 started a new era of skills-based multicultural immigration. This includes African migrants adding a new black perspective to the American story. By the 1990s, a new multicultural American identity had emerged. During this period, the rise of the black middle class was evident.
You know, we're used to thinking about white flight to the suburbs and black segregation, black concentration in cities.
That's the voice of William Fry. He's been tracking the shifting demographics of America over the past 5 decades.
To some degree that still exists, but there's also been a noticeable movement of blacks to the suburbs, and it's fairly pervasive. It's not just in 2 or 3 cities, but it's in a lot of cities across the country. Northern cities, southern cities, western cities. African Americans started to make this move, especially in the last 20 or 25 years. Really large numbers of blacks moved to the South. I attribute some of it to younger generations, several generations since the civil rights laws were enacted in the 1960s, who now do have an opportunity to get advanced educations, at least some college, and, you know, getting that foothold into the middle class, I think, is an important part of what's going on.
Today, the geography established by the Great Migration is beginning to fade away. Southern states have been leaders in black population growth since the 1970s. Still, these states have only captured a 4% increase in the share of the black population over the last 4 decades. So while we are seeing a reversal of the trend of African American migration to cities, it's unlikely the movement will be as far-reaching as the great migrations of the past. And it's because this migration is about a search for agency and opportunity, not about fleeing from violence.
The stakes are not the same now as they would have been during the Great Migration. You know, they are quite different in character and in magnitude. Many of them were fleeing like refugees with no certainty as to what was going to happen to them or how they would make a go of it in this new alien land. That was a watershed moment in American history, and like watershed moments, it's not something that is easily duplicated.
7, and I want you to see that. I'm going to write that because I don't want you to forget this one. I want you to have this. I want you to have this. Okay? 2021 to 2027 is the Passover. The Exodus is from 2027 to 2044. You must understand this. This is in the Bible, but they never told you that. They told you that this was about something 3,500 years ago. That is a lie. Anybody that preach that lie now is teaching Satan philosophy, not God's, okay? Anybody preach that lie and say that this something happened 3,400 years ago, they are lying to you. That Bible was sent here. King James sent that Bible here. The Menicians that wrote that Bible wrote about this Egypt, the first Egypt, not the Egypt over there, the first Egypt. We came from here. The Fertile Crescent was here. And you got a lot of leaders, black leaders, etc., is still trying to talk about you are African Americans. You ain't something Jesse Jackson cooked up in Chicago and some other fellas, as they say, at a meeting in Chicago, cook that up, you are African American. I ain't never been an African American, okay? I am a Native American. I'm a Hebrew Native American. Some call it a Cherokee. Some of them call it Blackfoot. But I'm a Native American from this. My ancestors been here. My father is half Cherokee. My mother is partially Blackfoot. Blackfoots are known as ones that come from the royal of the Indian tribe or the native tribes, okay? So I am of that. So I'm not going to deny who I am because somebody have learned something from the Eurocentric man during the time of before the Migration Act or during the time of the Migration Act to steal your land. No, I'm not about that. This is your land, my people. This is your land. Don't let nobody deceive you. I don't care how popular they have been in the past. If they saying that, you close your ears when they saying that particular thing because you don't need to hear that crap. And I hear people like Omar Johnson, he's still talking about, oh, African, you African, you ain't this, and nobody married this. I don't need nobody's attention. I don't need to say garbage and all this other stuff to get people's attention. Although I like the young man. Don't get me wrong. It's not about him, okay? This is using an example of how that been said, okay? And people still running with it. You got some actors still running with it. Ain't did no homework. They just go by what somebody else say. It's time out for going by what somebody else say. Do your homework. And that way you can find it. Quit trying to follow these Jim Joe and whatever people saying they ain't doing no scholarly work. They just saying what they heard somebody else say. It's time out for it, my people. Because what you're going to go through right now, you need to know by God. Not by what they say, that fake Jesus, that fake God that they dealing with. You need to know what God really all about. You need to know the God of the Old Testament and know him rightly. Okay, because they done took the New Testament and they done put their spin on it and they got you believing that their Jesus, that man that came, known as Jesus, came and fulfilled the things of the Old Testament, the things of the Torah. It never happened. It never happened. See, the thing of the Old Testament is about the Son of Man coming. So they want to make Jesus be the Son of Man. They sold you that idea of Jesus, that made up idea of Jesus, like they sold the Greeks that idea and the early Egyptian that idea of Serapis Christus. And you need to see a picture of Serapis Christus. It went from Serapis Christus to Mitra to Yahshua. But then it went before Yahshua. It's another name they had before Yahshua. And I'll show you that on another lecture that we're going to have. And you're going to know these things. Because see, it's time out. You need to know what time it is. What is going on now? What is this war all about? What is all this confusion about? See, they want to create the Armageddon war. And the Armageddon war ain't going to be over there. The Armageddon war is going to start, but it's going to be over here. See, they ain't talking about this part, this area. And you got to see this, my people. You got to see it. Let's deal with it now. Okay. Exodus 6:6-7. Wherefore, say unto the children of Israel, the children of Israel. Now, if you're going to talk to the children of Israel, you got to know where the children of Israel at. Who are the children of Israel? See, when you go there and talk about, oh, them the children of Israel, them the Eurocentric people, it's like the Egyptian president say, they left here black and they done came back white. How are we going to accept this crap? Okay? Because he knew that there was black people in that area. Look at some pictures. Look at some pictures of the people who lived in the Palestine area before Israel was established in 1947, 1948. Look at some pictures that they will show you in 1912, 1920s of the peoples that lived in that area of Israel. See what they look like. I want you to see what they look like. Then you start seeing how they done colored this thing and lied to you and got you believing a great lie. And now they use Hollywood to help push it and all this other stuff to help push it. And now you sitting in front of TV accepting, oh, they real Israelites. They wear the hat, they wear the beard, they the real Israelites. All that crap, and your church is right down with the nonsense. Your church helping the devil more than the devil helping himself. Come on, we got to see this truth now. Let's see the truth. Wherefore say unto the children of Israel, say unto the children of Israel, what is Israel? Israel is a code name. Let's look at it. Israel is a code name. Let me deal with my chart, because you need to see this. Israel is a code name. If I say Israel is a code name, it's an anagram, then I must prove it. You got to deal with Hebrew typology. It must be an anagram. Understand what an anagram is, okay? If you use the word cinema and you use the word Iceman, you can see what an anagram is. It's using the same words, and in it you can change one letter, but you got to build that letter off another letter to have a design. But that's what an anagram is, and you got to see it. Israel is a person. First of all, Israel is a person. Israel comes from the name Jacob. Okay, so Israel is a person. So this person, Israel, got to be understood. So what we're gonna do? You got L-E. There go your L and your E, okay? Then you got I-S, there go your I and your S. It's called a anagram. Now, how do you get your W? You get your W from your S. You take this S here and that, and you take it and go this way with it, okay? And then you take this other part and go this way with it. Now you got L-E-W-I-S. Now, also, Lewis, it gives you other two letters to know what Lewis it is. And that Lewis it gives you an A and an R. And you can put that A and an R there. So that know you got his first name and part of his last name. Okay? You need to know that because they've been lying to you. They've been lying to you. And anybody set up in that pulpit and say what I'm teaching is wrong, they are lying to you. It's time out for the foolishness. People, you need to know the truth. God sent you a messenger. You need to know the truth. And you got to know this stuff because there's no time for no fooling around with your knowledge because your children, your physical body, your children, your family is at stake now. Because these crazy peoples, they finna cause a real war. And you sat down and not knowing, you look at some of them bombs and them things hitting Ukraine. And just imagine some of that stuff hitting your land. Even worse. Come on now. Do not be stupid to what's going on. America never had a serious war other than the Civil War on this land. Other nations have. America haven't. And you got to see what's going on now. You got to see what's going on. I am the Lord. I am the Lord. And I will bring you out from under the bondage of the Egyptian. Now we know that the U.S. done took over this land through the manifest destiny and the doctrine of discovery. This land is the Egypt. It's the Egypt of old. This is the Egypt. This is where the Fertile Crescent is. This is where man came from, okay? This is where the beginning is. This is the area where the fountain of youth is at. This is the area where the Florida is at. This is the area where the Garden of Eve is at. Over here, not over there, over here. Prove me wrong. And you got to see this because these individuals been taught by, I don't like to use the term enemy, but sometimes you got to use it, by the enemy. They've been taught, a lot of your preachers been taught by the enemy. A lot of your colleges learned things that the white agenda wanted to be known, not only to you, but to their own people. See, it don't hurt for these people to lie to you. Look at all these treaties that they gave to your ancestors. Look at all this land that they took from your ancestors. You need to see this. I'm going to move along. I'm not going to keep this and rest in one area. Okay? And I will take you in Exodus 6:7. And I will take you to me for a people. Now, why do the God Allah, why do thought have, because you foreign. He's foreign to you. You don't know nothing about no Allah other than what you hear around the Muslims. You didn't know that before there was a Muslim, there was Allah. Nobody told you about that. Even Muhammad ain't come invent no Allah. Allah was here before Muhammad even came, was born. Allah was here. An angel told me the name Allah, not Allah, Allah. So I know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm talking about. So Allah is you see, people look at Allah as a person. I look at thought and materiality as a person, but I look at Allah as the source. He's the creator of all this, the Almighty. He created all this. So you can't narrow him down to a male or female. You can't. He's Allah. And that's how you got to see it. And you got to understand this. And who is the one after Allah? It's the Lord God thought. Now, is there other ones? Yes. See, it's what people don't realize, that they were never called gods. They were called netters. Okay? They were called netters. Energy. And thought is one that brings you the knowledge of the Cassette record. Thought is the one is known as materiality as the priest of the Most High God. Thought is a brother, just like we are human beings. He was made in the image and likeness of God as a big brother. We are made in the image and likeness of God. So, like we come in two, thought come in two. That's how I seen him in two, looking just alike. Two of them looking just alike. That's how they come. And you have to see that. Okay? Now, it say in Exodus 6:7, and I will take you from a people. Now, I will take you to me for a people. And I will be to you a God. Now, I want you to go back to the story of Moses. And when Moses went onto the mountain, and he went to see and talk to the gods of the Father. And on the mountain, he met Thought, which is known as Melchizedek. And Thought said unto him, when he asked him, who do I tell the children of Israel? Who do I tell them sent me? And he said, I am that I am. And when you change that anagram to its proper place, it is I am thought I am. Now I want you to see this now, because it's very important. I am, I'm gonna write this in here, although this ain't the place for it to go, but just know that I just put this in there explaining something. You're going to see, I am that I am, okay? Now, this is done like this. I am thought. This A is going to turn to an O. You got that. Plus, now we use the H, and the H is silent. That means I am thought, I am. And that's who he was. That's who he is. And you need to see that. Now, let's go on. It's very important, because God is going to bring you out of this condition and say, and ye shall know thought, I am. He's telling you, you shall know thought, I am. The Lord, your God, which bring you out from under the bondage of the Egyptian, which is America. See, America ain't treating you right. America got your land. These people done stole your land. You know, I'm not gonna sit back and let that just go away when they done stole our people's land. I'm a royal. And when I come down to this planet, I'm a royal, I'm gonna fight like hell for my land, my father's land. I'm not gonna sit there and they done took our land, ain't nothing we could do that. Hey, with that. Royals, you're gods. You don't sit back and let nobody take your stuff. And you know they did it illegally? No, And if you want to ride with that and go back to talk about, well, we from Africa, y'all ride that boat. I ain't on that boat. I didn't come on that boat. My ancestors did not come on that boat. They was already here. Okay? And you could go in the Grand Canyon and other places and see the artifacts or hear about the artifacts that have been discovered in the Grand Canyon, and different people that talk about that. They got it here. They hiding it. The Smithsonian Institute hiding it from you. And all these stories hiding it from you because they don't want you to come back and take your land back or come back and legally fight for your land. So they done hid it from you. And you sitting back here being a sucker for these people. I ain't got nothing against them. The average white person. But the leadership, I ain't going with that. Nah, because see, at this time, in the procession of the equinox, you got to understand that it's time for you to come up and be victorious. So this part here is working with the procession. See, God already done put this in motion for your deliverance, and you got to understand that. God want to deliver you. He do not want them people to take your ancestral land and do you. See, you reap what you sow. Okay? And they ain't reap the darn thing when it comes to taking your land. And you're going to just sit back, oh, I just want some reparation. You give me $500,000, give me $1 million. What that going to do with you when you own all these states? No, we ain't going out like that. Even when they talk about the story of Abraham, Abraham wanted to know what happened. What is God telling us in that story of Abraham? It's telling us in that story of Abraham is that the initiate's going to show you how to count and number the stars. And you need to know that. When they talk about the 13 families, they about no 13 families. This is 13 space of what they call it, 13 space in the Fibonacci sequence. You go 13 spaces over, you get to 144. This whole circumference is 144,000. Okay, you're talking about 360 years. 360 days a year, not 365.25. And you got to understand that in each one of these areas, each one of these 18,000 days, they pass a law. They pass a law to punish your behind. And you got to see it, my people. You got to see what's going on. You got to see it. When you see that first law, 1619, what it was, they had gave you a right to kill you if you did not be and do what they wanted you to do when it comes to their laws. The next law, the French brought you in there. And the next law, this first law was the Casual Killing Act. Okay, a casual killing act to kill you. Okay, now you're on your land, but if you run away after they caught you and they have the Indian war, they caught you, or your children run away and they done put you in bondage, done afflict you, done put you in what they call that so-called slavery, and you ran away off their plantation, all that, they could kill you. Okay, and then the French brought more in 1718 in Biloxi area, and then you had now, in this 1718, although they brought slaves in the Biloxi area, you had places about Florida, Georgia, and stuff like that. Them Cherokee Indians still had their nation there. This didn't happen. Some of this stuff ain't happened till way later, way when Andrew Jackson came. Then you had the Townsend Act, where they wanted the British wanted to pass laws so they could take care of their soldiers from coming over here and guarding these plantations, etc. Then you had in 1816, you had the AME Church, but what 1816 was really all about? 1816 was a migrational act. This is when they wanted to move you off your land. They wanted to move you off your land. That's why at 1665, you had Lincoln them. After the Civil War, before the Civil War, they wanted to take you somewhere else, but they made an agreement with the 40 acres and a mule to give you back some of your land that was on the coast of Florida all the way up to North Carolina and stuff like that, to the Carolinas. Then you had in 1914, you had the thing that deal with the silk during World War I, where the people in the North wanted you to migrate that and come out on plantations so you could help build them weapons and all that other stuff for the war. In 1665, they had that, the law that they had already passed in the 1800s, they had the Civil Rights Bill. Now, they gave you the 13, 14, 15 Amendment, but they gave you the Civil Rights thing. And then in 2013, that was the end, October the 3rd, 2013, that was the end of those 400 years. Now you got to see that, because what you need to know is that you need to know about the Passover and you need to know about the Exodus. But before you know about the Passover and the Exodus, you got to know when did the judgment take place. You need to know that. And that's when the judgment take place, after 2013, in this period of the year. And you need to know that. Now we're going to go on over. I'm going to read Exodus down here. Exodus 6:8. And I will bring you in unto the land concerning thee, which I did swear to give to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. Now, if you want to talk about to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, this land, the Hebrew land, was already known as under the fathers. So Abraham is an example of showing you the fathers. Isaac is showing you the father of Jacob, but it's showing you a bloodline. In other words, I'm giving the bloodline this land, but it's going to stop on Jacob because you're going to put Israel there. And what is Israel related to? The future, our time. So Israel is Louis A. Now, I'm going to say this briefly, but I don't want to get too deep into that. That's why you see the French kings will name their kings Louis, because they wanted that to be controlled by a Louis, because they know a Louis supposed to come. And this is why you look at the date in which what the guy named Napoleon, the date in which Napoleon went in and conquered that Egypt, and the date that he came over and conquered, got the Louisiana territory. That was 2 Egypts. But they tell you, he went and conquered 2 Egypts. 2 years later, he came over here in America, less than 2 years, and conquered that area of Egypt. And you got to know this. See, you don't know none of this stuff. You didn't know that the true Egypt started here and not over there. Study the immortality of thought. You'll know that thought was here first. They was over here first. This is where the Fertile Crescent at. And then how they said the flood came, the city and stuff of Atlanta was destroyed. Then they went over there and civilized the African or the other natives in Palestine area or Egypt area. They were the same people. And you got to see this. Now let's move on. The judgment. Let's deal with the judgment. Okay? Because they're going to say you're going to inherit the land. Because they say, and I will give it you for an inheritance. I am the Lord. So you're going to get this land. So if I tell you you're going to get this land, you're going to get this land. Now, how do he set it up for you to get the land? He got to give a judgment first. There's got to be a judgment. And that's where you're going to see this particular judgment in the story of Jacob talking to Pharaoh. You're going to see the story in the events in America where America's going to be catching hell, so that they're going to call the Jacob type individuals up front in order to try to guide this government on what they need to do to get out of this condition. Okay, now you got the judgment, and you got to remember, the Boule Negro is up here at the top trying to give some advice to the Eurocentric system to keep it abreast. And they pulling them from everywhere. They even got my cousin, Warnock, from out of Martin Luther King Church and work up in there because they know they're catching hell. And they finna catch hell. Okay? So you got to see these things. Okay? Pull them right out of Martin Luther King Church and bring them up there to help give some advice. And you need to see this, my people. The judgment. When was the judgment? The judgment was 21 years. It happened from 2000 to 2020. It was shown in the story of Joseph as good, bad, grizzly bad, dealing with the cow, good, bad, grizzly bad, dealing with the natural disasters. Okay, and you're going to see that chart. It's very important to know this because you need to know what is happening. What is the Passover? You got the judgment going to happen. When is the Passover? The Passover from 2021 to 2027. What is the Passover all about? Blast with the east wind, the war. And they're going to rotate the same way. Good, bad, grizzly bad. Good, bad, grizzly bad. Good. Okay, now, if I say it's going to rotate the same way, and 2020 done happened, and 22 done happened, then what happened in our history to show that to be so? Now you can see, she's going to show you some things and some events that happened from 20 to 21, some events, she's going to flash some pictures up to show you that. But you got to see that. You got to understand that. Now what happened in the part of the Passover? The Passover deal with the year, what the Passover all about? God's destruction of that nation, that Egypt. God's destruction of that nation. And why is God going to destroy that nation? Because they ain't going to give you your land back. Just like in the prodigal son, the older brother ain't want to give you what belonged to you. So what God had to do, he had to send the servants. He had to send the servant to put the robe on, that's political power, to put the ring on, that's social power, to put the shoes on, that's economic power, then to put you in the house, okay, and set you up as a nation. That's what the prodigal son was all about. You coming back to yourself and being who you supposed to be, because they done brain drained you, they done social engineered you, they done told you all these lies and you went believing it, and they use that fake behind TV media to show you that, oh, the Indians always was in teepee when the Indians had houses for Andrew Jackson. Houses, my people, we got pictures of it to show you. Now, let's narrow this on down, okay? Now, you got to understand the Passover, then you got to understand the Exodus, because the Exodus is going to be a 17-year period of time from 2028 to 2024. In that Exodus, you must have your nation established in that Exodus, and that's what's going to happen. But the first thing you need to focus on is from 2021 to 2027, because the first year, 2021, was a good year, preparation for war, and they went over there to Ukraine, the senators and etc. And 22 was a bad year. Putin was in Ukraine, bombing it. Okay, now we had 2023, and what we having? We're having a problem with China, talking about China ain't gonna take Taiwan, and China telling you, don't give a damn what you say, American. We are the superpower over here, and we're gonna take it. And you got to see this. Now, we're gonna go in and cover this other part. And what is this Passover all about? The Hebrew liberation from affliction in Egypt, which is America, and the passing over of the forces of destruction. Remember this, the forces of destruction, the war, and the sparing of life of the Hebrews when the Lord struck the land of Egypt. Okay? Smacked the land of Egypt, which is America, on the eve of the Exodus, on the eve of the Exodus. And you must see that. Now, I want to read something that Edgar Casey said, because he talked about the same time and about black folks in that time. Edgar Casey, The Sleeping Prophet, page 88. The prophecy had a almost biblical cadence in its solemn urgency. Those who rather join themselves with the force by which they may proclaim might and power as right, as of a Superman, a Messiah, who is to be an idea for a generation to be established, then shall thy own land see the blood flow, as in those periods when brother fought against brother. Meaning just that, citizen against citizen, civil war. Now I tell you, in 2025, you're going to have that civil war, and you got to understand what's going on now. You need to know what's going on. Look at some of them other videos and you're going to see. Now we're going to narrow this down. I like to talk about our people. I don't mean to holler, but this is very important, urgent. Leon James, Tamir C. Fennell, James Green, Marvin G., Messiah Williams, Wesley Cetus, Sherry White, that's Violet Martina, okay, and Carla, that Hedges, okay. Now, these individuals, I thank God for them. And we're going to have more on the next one. And I want you to know that we are satisfied with these people and many more. And the ones that I don't call your name, you know I'm going to call your name in another video. So just hold tight. But I love you. Y'all are there. And we must show appreciation. But we'd like you to make your donation. And we need to build our peoples now. Help this movement. Okay, you can make your donation to Louis Armstrong Ministry at 7536 Jane Lane North, Jacksonville, Florida 32210. And you also could go to Crossrock Incorporated. Go to Give LaFi. With Crossrock, go to Give LaFi. You go to that same address or go to Give LaFi on your mobile app under charity. Also PayPal at ArmstrongLewisJ@gmail.com. That's PayPal at ArmstrongLewisJ@gmail.com. Also with Cash App at $SWAU 1954. That's Cash App at $SWAU 1954. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for these individuals. Heavenly Father, open their eyes and their mind that they can see the truth is. Father, thank you for giving us an opportunity to come before your chosen peoples, the very elect, so they could be able to see what's going on, that they will know what you're doing with this nation. And I say this in the name of the Lord God, and the grace of Allah. Amen.